guys, it's Gretchen and welcome back to my channel. I honestly have no idea where December is going at this point, but it is already time for the December Body Mods Q&A. If you're unaware, I do a Body Mods themed Q&A every single month. Questions come either from the YouTube comments on the previous month's Body Mod Q&A or from Instagram when I pop up a little ask me anything bubble thing. So if you would like to ask a question for January 2021's Body Mod Q&A, which is just weird to say, you can either leave them in the comments below or you can follow me on Instagram and ask over there. As always, I received quite a few questions, so I apologize if I do not get to your question. Either I've answered it multiple times before or someone else asked it before I got to yours. So please, please, please do not be offended or hurt if I don't answer yours specifically. I can't keep track of all of them. So let's go ahead and get started because these videos end up being long sometimes. Kezzy Morris asks, is a flat and outer conch piercing the same thing? So it's not. What a flat entails, it's usually in the upper cartilage area of your ear and it's just in that flat space over here. So it's got to be in this upper section, which is not a conch. Conch is down here. Flat is always in the upper part of your ear. Lyrics for You asks, is it okay to heal 4 piercings at once? I think it depends on what those piercings are. If you've got 4 piercings all on like the same ear, that's fine. It's not recommended. It's not recommended that you do more than 3 at a time. However, if you have 4, as long as it's in the same area. Now, if you're doing like 3 on one ear and 1 on the other ear, not really recommended. Usually if you're gonna get multiple piercings, either at one time or you're gonna get one and then immediately get another one, and so on and so forth, it's recommended that you get it in the same area so that like if you're a side sleeper, which I am, that way you can have one whole side to at least be on so that you don't irritate it. If it's something along the lines of like you've got 2 ear piercings and then you got your nipples pierced, that's technically 4 right there. I think that's fine. It's just more of a commitment for you, the more piercings you get, because then that means the longer your aftercare takes and all that, because you're dealing with 4 piercings as opposed to like 1 or 2. It depends on what you're willing to put into it. So if you think you can handle healing 4 piercings at one time, I would just caution you about it. It's not recommended to do more than 3 at a time, but if you want to do 4, just know what you're in for. Michaela Guy's Wine asks, what stretching method do you prefer, tapering or dead stretching? So it depends on the size. For the larger sizes, definitely dead stretching. For the smaller sizes, I personally did not have a problem with tapering. That being said, not everyone's gonna agree with that. A lot of people are very much against tapers and their usage. However, I feel like if you are aware of how to properly use one, which kinds are the better kinds to use, acrylic is not the correct answer to that one. I think as long as you know kind of what you're doing, it's fine. But for me, I like both. It just depends on the size in question. But if I have to pick one, I'll probably pick dead stretching. Louise C asks, I would love to see you give tips on haircut and hair coloring when you have a new piercing. How long do you wait before coloring your hair when you just got a new piercing? So I might eventually do a video just entirely about this topic because I do color my hair quite often. So I get a lot of questions about what do you do with, you know, your piercings and hair dye, la la la. I'm gonna start with the haircut thing. I have gotten my hair cut, I guess 4 weeks after a piercing before. Immediately regretted it because the hair just keeps getting caught in there, and even if the stylist is aware that you have a new piercing, like the best thing to do is be like, yo, such and such piercing is new. If you could just be careful around it, I'd appreciate it. That being said, I've had multiple earrings ripped out by a stylist before, so I'd probably wait as long as possible. If you get your hair done, go get a piercing right away so that you at least have 6 weeks or so before your next haircut or something like that. As for coloring, I'm probably the worst person to ask about this, and really I should do my own research. The hair dye that I use isn't harsh at all. I don't worry about it like harming my piercings. That being said, I do try to clean it up pretty quickly after I notice like if dye got on a piercing site. Savannah Webb asks, do you have any videos about your eyebrow tattoos? I do, actually. It's an old one. I really need to redo it, but I'm not gonna redo it until February because that is when I go back for my like 1.5 year appointment. So I got my eyebrows done several years ago, but then I went to a new artist because It needed to be touched up. Not quite sure what happened to the first artist that I had. She like stopped doing it. I love my new one. My new artist is amazing. Reshaped it a little bit and then filled it in a little bit more. And so I have my 1.5-year touch-up appointment in February, so I will redo that video then. So you'll have to wait until then to see my video, but it's one of those things that I do not regret getting at all. If you're thinking about getting your eyebrows microbladed, I recommend it, definitely. It saves me so much time in the morning, even though I still color mine in red to match my hair. It doesn't take me nearly as long because I don't have to think about the shape. It's amazing. Did it hurt? That's probably gonna be a question that someone asks. Yeah, even with the numbing cream, it hurt. But that's also because numbing agents don't work on me. Marissa Harley asks, anyone else having their piercings flare up when they get stressed out, or is it just me? It is not just you. Mine, and it's like particular ones too that seem to flare up when I get stressed out. Sometimes my forehead helix is probably the most temperamental one right now, and that one definitely will flare up if I'm stressed out for whatever reason. I'm like, why you? Why you? So do all of my piercings flare up? No, specific ones do, but they do. Riley asks, would you recommend getting a septum piercing during the pandemic? Also, any tips for someone who wants their septum pierced? Things to do, avoid. So of the facial piercings, I think the septum is probably the least likely to have anything harmful done to it during this time, you know, with face mask usage. I could definitely see like nostrils getting irritated or any lip piercing getting irritated, but because the nose pokes out and the septum is back and down from like the tip of your nose, I feel like a mask wouldn't irritate it. However, if you feel like it might, then that's gonna be one of those situations where you sit there and you're like, all right, maybe I just need to have it flipped up for a while it's healing. Things like that you kind of have to take into consideration. Like if you think the mask might rub the jewelry, definitely flip it up so that that won't happen. But also keep in mind, if you have a brand new septum piercing, you don't wanna be flipping it up, flipping it down constantly. You should only do that maybe like twice a day. Elias Jefferson asks, how do I know when to take my regular ear piercings out? It's been about 4 weeks. So it depends on what you got pierced. I definitely do not recommend taking anything out until the 6-week mark. If it's lobes, the 6-week mark should be fine. If it's cartilage of any kind, you shouldn't be taking it out before 3 months. It really just depends on what you got pierced. Brock Lou asks, do you think society will accept body mods in the office setting more in the future? I'd like to think so. We're in 2020, about to go into 2021. If people are still judging others based on their body mods, they have bigger problems. You know, the older generation sometimes lumps in body mods with like degenerates or something like that. Let them think what they want. It doesn't affect you. However, in the workplace, sometimes places are like, oh, piercings are dirty. Which if you know anything about piercings, you know that that's far from the truth unless you just don't keep up with your aftercare. So I'd like to say in the year 2020, you know, about to go into the year 2021, that offices are more accepting, but that's not always the case. I'm personally lucky that my place of work is pretty accepting of the body mods that I've done. I also don't have anything that's like tasteless. I don't have any offensive tattoos or anything like that. My piercings are all nice and clean and they're smaller. They don't have anything that's like really jumps out at you. It's one reason why I constantly have like a segment ring in my septum piercing that hugs my nose, because I don't want to draw too much attention, more so than I already am in that area. I try and meet them halfway by not just going gung-ho with some like flashy jewelry or like offensive tattoos. I also wouldn't get offensive tattoos, but so long story short, I hope so. I can't even say that I know so, but I hope more places will be accepted. Care Bear asks, do you regret any of your piercings? The only one that I regret is getting my navel done when I did, how I did, all that stuff. I don't have it anymore. I got rid of it 10 days after I got it, but that was because I had to go to like an emergency doctor in order to have it removed. So that's really the only one that I regret, because I was still incredibly new to piercings at the time and did not research like the shop or anything like that. So that's the only one that I truly regret. Of course, Mad Lily asks, thinking about getting my Medusa philtrum done, but I've heard lip piercings are quite painful. any advice. So I jokingly say this, but I've also found that it works. If you build up the thought in your head that it's going to be painful and you go into that appointment thinking it's going to be super painful, it's most likely not going to be as painful as you thought. I have found that to be accurate with every single one of my piercings. I go in thinking that it's gonna hurt like the dickens, and then it ends up not. So I jokingly say that as advice, but also at the same time, I found that it actually works. I personally did not find mine to be painful at all. It was uncomfortable just because the piercer's gotta be all up in your mouth, so it's a little uncomfortable, but other than that, it was not painful. Tessa Marie asks, when do you think you'll stop getting piercings? Is there a number? There is absolutely no number. It'll just be when I either run out of room or I'm just like, all right, I think I've had enough, but I don't see that happening soon. Kian Lindsay asks, can I go swimming without my piercing getting irritated, infected? Depends on how long you've had it. If you've only had it for a few weeks, absolutely do not submerge your piercing. If you've had it for a few years, then you should be fine. If you've had it for like 6 months, you should be fine. But if it's a relatively new piercing, like 3 months and under, don't go swimming. Rebecca My Finch asks, what's the dumbest question you've ever had about your piercings and tattoos? Probably the airport security one, but like not in the sense that is typical of like, do you set metal detectors off? The answer is no. But one question that I've gotten multiple times, and I'm not sure where the thought process is on this one. I guess some people think that the metal detector scan, like through TSA, is similar to like getting a medical procedure done, but a lot of them are like, does it hurt when you go through a metal detector at the airport? And I sit there and I'm like, metal detector? Like, why would it hurt? And they're like, well, you know, like magnets and like it pulls on your piercings. And I'm like, oh, those aren't the same thing. So I think that might be the dumbest one. And I don't really want to call the people that have asked me that before like dumb. I think they just confused what the metal detector is with like a piece of medical equipment. I don't know. I'd say that's the wildest question I've been asked before. Demka Belikov asks, is it just me or do newish piercings ooze a lot more in the winter months? My trach is crusty AF. You know, I haven't actually paid attention. Mine seem to be better in the winter. I don't know if it's like the dry air dries out my piercings. I definitely noticed that I have a harder time in like the spring with my piercings. I don't know if pollen and all that contributed to it, but that's when I notice mine are the worst, or in the spring. Mine just get like achy because of the coldness in the winter. So I haven't noticed like oozing or crustiness too much. Charlie Curtis asks, any tips for someone looking into a septum piercing as a first piercing other than earlobes? Just be prepared. Do your research on it before you get it done, especially if it's your first piercing other than lobes. There's a big difference between your lobes and your septum. So do your research and just kind of be prepared. Also realize that it's gonna be a far more awkward feeling experience than your lobes, because your lobes are just out there, easy to pierce. Whereas your septum, the piercer's got to root around in your nose. Just know that's gonna be a little awkward. And realize the aftercare for it is completely different than your lobes. I mean, you still clean it the same way, but it just may take longer. And the last question is from Ellen Cormans, and it's, what is your favorite ear piercing? Earlobes not included. Definitely my conch. Absolutely love my conch. I always recommend conch piercings to people because it's my favorite. So that is it for the questions for December's Body Mods Q&A. Again, if you would like to ask a question for January, leave them in the comments below or follow me on Instagram where you can watch my stories and ask a question when I pop the little box up. Special thank you to my patrons. You can help support the channel on Patreon while having access to videos early, viewing patron-only content, and more. But that is it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a big ol' thumbs up. Go down there and hit that subscribe button wherever it may be, because I don't know, even though I do. This is just my shtick now. Also hit that notification bell in case you want to know when I upload, and in case YouTube wants to let you know when I upload, because I would really appreciate it. And until next time, bye guys.